Welcome back to the deep dive.
Hello again.
This week, we're digging into the Azure service updates from October 13th through the 17th, 2025.
Yeah, and it was quite a week, a real mix of things landing.
Definitely wasn't just, minor fixes. We saw some pretty major GA announcements, things focused on scaling, control.
And also some really crucial retirement notices, long-term stuff, but things platform teams absolutely need to start thinking about now.
Exactly. So our goal here is to cut through the noise and give you the operational so what. How do these changes actually impact things like reliability, cost, your long-term architecture?
That's the plan. We structured this to hit the key GA features, the important previews, and yeah, those critical sunset dates, especially those out in 2028.
Yeah, 2028 sounds far away, but it's really not in planning terms. The theme that sort of jumped out at me was this drive for more granular control. You see it in the firewall updates, Kubernetes lifecycle, even migration automation.
Agreed. So where should we start? Maybe the foundation, global footprint compute.
Sounds good. Let's start there. Infrastructure and compute flexibility.
Okay. So first up, continued global expansion. Microsoft's pushing into new markets, specifically the planned data center region in Malaysia, Southeast Asia 3, that's now hit private preview.
That's pretty significant for that region.
No, absolutely. It's a big strategic move. Opens up lower latency, local data residency options.
Yeah.
Things that are just vital if you're expanding operations there.
And, as the footprint grows, compliance always follows. There was a GA update, seems small, but important for the UK Azure regions, the Locations API update.
Right, the metadata update. Specifically, geography group and regional display name.
Okay, metadata updates can sound a bit dry, but why is this one GA important?
Well, for anyone dealing with compliance and regulation, it's actually critical. If your policies, like geofencing, rely on Azure's own definitions of regions from the API, then you need that API metadata to be accurate and aligned with current regulations. This GA ensures that. It prevents issues where, say, a deployment might accidentally breach data sovereignty rules because the regional naming wasn't up to date. And it's effective this month, October 2025, so it's happening fast.
Got it. So keeping the map accurate, basically. Okay, let's shift over to compute. Reliability seems to be a big theme here, especially for serverless. Azure Functions Flex Consumption now has GA support for availability zones.
Yes. This is a really nice simplification for developers.
How much does it simplify things practically?
Quite a bit, actually. Availability zones are, the standard for handling data center failures. Now, Functions Flex Consumption just automatically spreads your instances across zones.
So it's automatic when you create or update.
Exactly. Built-in fault tolerance. You don't have to manually configure or manage the zoning for that high availability anymore. The platform handles it.
Nice. And sticking with functions, but more on the dev experience side, Python 3.13 support is GA. What's the key takeaway besides just the new version?
I think the bigger deal is the control it gives you. This GA includes a new opt-in feature for runtime version control.
Ah, so you can pin the version.
Precisely. You can target a specific version of the function's Python runtime. This means no more surprises, where a platform update suddenly changes your runtime and potentially breaks your code. Much more deployment certainty.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk Kubernetes, because there was a GA that addresses, well, a long-standing headache for a lot of AKS users.
You're talking about the new OS SKU enum Azure Linux 3.
Exactly, for Kubernetes versions 1.28 to 1.36.
Yeah, this one's pretty important for platform teams. Anyone who's been, let's say, inconvenienced by forced OS updates tied to K8's upgrades will appreciate this.
So what does it actually let you do, besides using Azure Linux 3.0?
The killer feature is the decoupling. It separates the OS upgrade lifecycle from the Kubernetes upgrade lifecycle.
Ah, okay. They used to be linked.
Often, yes, very tightly. Now you can manage them independently. This means way more flexibility in planning maintenance, applying patches, and just generally reducing the risk associated with big platform updates. Control goes back to the engineering team.
Right. Decoupling puts the control back where it belongs. Okay, so we've got reliability with AZs, control with decoupling. What about cost and performance? That brings us to Spot VMs and the Azure Spot Placement Score, now GA.
Yeah, this is a neat little feature. Spot VMs are great for cost savings, but, their availability can be unpredictable depending on the region or zone.
Right. It's a gamble sometimes.
Exactly. The placement score helps you quantify that gamble a bit. It gives you a score indicating the likelihood of your Spot VM deployment succeeding in a particular location based on recent availability trends.
So it's like a prediction.
Kind of a heuristic, yeah. It helps you make a more informed choice about where to try and deploy your spot VMs, increasing your chances of actually getting that capacity at the low price. Less guesswork.
Okay, that's useful. Let's move smoothly then into networking and security. Azure Firewall got quite a bit of attention this week. Two related GAs focused on scaling. First one, prescaling.
Yes, prescaling. Think of this as the solution to getting caught off guard by sudden traffic spikes.
Like a big marketing launch or holiday sale.
Exactly that kind of thing. Admins can now provision and reserve firewall capacity units in advance. You anticipate the load, reserve the capacity, and when the traffic hits, the firewall scales instantly. Consistent throughput, no cold start delays.
That sounds powerful, but does reserving capacity mean you're paying for it even if, say, the traffic spike isn't as big as you expected?
Good question. And that's where the second GA feature fits perfectly, the observed capacity metric.
Okay, how does that help?
It's an observability signal. It tracks how many capacity units your firewall is actually using over time. So you use prescaling to plan ahead based on predictions. And then you use observed capacity to see what really happened. It helps you validate your forecasts and fine-tune them so you're not constantly over-provisioning and paying for capacity you don't end up needing.
Got it. Plan ahead, then measure the reality. Makes sense.
All right.
Okay, shifting from the edge to private connectivity. There's a public preview that looks like it simplifies things. Private link service, direct connect.
Yeah, this one aims to streamline the setup for delivering services privately. Traditionally, setting up a private link service meant you had to put your service behind a standard load balancer first.
Okay.
Direct Connect removes that requirement. You don't need the load balancer intermediary specifically for the private link service itself.
So fewer steps, fewer Azure resources to manage.
Exactly. Cuts down configuration complexity, reduces the number of moving parts in your architecture, and potentially lowers the cost associated with that extra load balancer.
Yeah.
Just a cleaner setup.
Nice. Streamlining is always good. Okay, let's change gears completely. Data management, migration, analytics. Lots happening here too. First, for organizations with just, tons of data spread everywhere, Azure Storage Discovery is GA.
Oh yeah, this tackles a major pain point, especially in large enterprises. Imagine having hundreds, maybe thousands of storage accounts across different subs, different regions.
Yeah, trying to get a handle on capacity, usage, security. It's tough.
It's an operational nightmare. Storage Discovery aims to give you that single pane of glass, enterprise-wide visibility into your entire Azure storage estate.
So you can see what you have, how it's being used.
That's right. Analyze capacity, track activity patterns, optimize costs, enforce security policies consistently. It basically makes sprawling storage governable again.
That sounds incredibly useful. We also saw a GA related to blending enterprise data. SAP Business Data Cloud, or BDC, connect to Azure Databricks.
Yes, this is a big deal for companies running SAP and wanting to leverage Databricks for analytics. The key tech here is delta sharing.
And the benefit.
It enables secure, bidirectional data sharing. But the really important part is that it's zero copy.
Zero copy, meaning no ETL.
Essentially, yes. You can combine your SAP business data with other data sources inside Databricks for unified analytics, without having to build complex ETL pipelines or physically move potentially massive SAP datasets around. It avoids the cost, the delay, and the security risks of data duplication.
Very efficient. Okay, sticking with efficiency, but moving towards database lifecycles. Automation support for Azure Database Migration Service, DMS, is now GA.
Finally, yes, automation via PowerShell, the Azure CLI, cmdlets, and the Python SDK is generally available.
So no more just clicking through the portal for migrations.
Exactly. You can now script your database migrations, integrate them into your DevOps pipelines using tools like As Data Migration or As Data Migration. It brings infrastructure as code principles to database migration, making the process repeatable and less error-prone.
That's a big step for automation. Now, speaking of databases and reliability, another GA. Azure Site Recovery now supports VMs with ultradisks.
Right. Ultradisks are for those really high-performance, IOPS-intensive workloads. Think critical databases.
So now ASR can protect them.
Correct. ASR can now handle the replication, failover, and failback for VMs using ultradisks. This ensures you have robust disaster recovery, BCDR, across Azure regions, even for your absolute top-tier, most performance-sensitive storage.
Good to know those are covered. And looking ahead slightly, for database folks interested in the latest and greatest, there's a new preview.
Yep. PostgreSQL 18 is now in public preview on Azure Database for PostgreSQL Flexible Server.
So early access.
Early access to the newest community features. We'll likely see improvements around performance, scalability, maybe some new developer productivity stuff. If you rely heavily on Postgres, now's the time to kick the tires on version 18 in the preview environment.
Get ready for when it goes GA. Okay, one more in the data space. Azure Event Grid had a GA feature focused on security for real-time stuff.
That's right. Specifically, MQTT-O Auth 2.0 authentication is now GA.
Why is that important?
For large-scale, modern IoT deployments using MQTT, you need strong standard-based authentication. This lets you authenticate your MQTT clients using JSON Web Tokens, JWTs. It's crucial for integrating with centralized identity systems in those distributed IoT scenarios where Event Grid acts as the message broker.
Okay, secures the edge communication. Right, we've covered a lot of GA and preview features. Now we need to pivot to something equally important, maybe even more so for long-term planning, the retirements.
Yes, these definitely require attention. Some deadlines feel far off, like 2028, but for large organizations, that's practically next year in terms of planning cycles.
Okay, first one, AML space.
Azure Custom Vision. The service is scheduled for retirement on September 25th, 2028.
So nearly 3 years out.
3 years, yes. But migrating machine learning models, especially if they're embedded deep into business processes, isn't trivial. Teams using Custom Vision need to start planning that migration now. Put it on the roadmap, you get full support until the retirement date, but definitely don't wait until the last minute.
Good advice. Okay, the next one feels bigger, much bigger impact on core infrastructure. The VM series retirements.
This is, I think, the most critical announcement of the week. It demands immediate, serious attention from platform and infrastructure teams.
It's a long list of series retiring on November 15th, 2028. Can you run through them?
Sure. We're talking about the F series, Fs, SSV2, LSV2, Gs, AV2, AMV2, and the B series.
Wow. That's a lot of commonly used older generation VMs, F, G, B series. That covers a massive legacy footprint.
It really does. For any organization with a significant Azure presence, chances are high they have workloads running on some of these series.
So what's the practical implication if you've got, say, hundreds or thousands of these VMs running today? What happens on November 16th, 2028?
The implication is a hard stop. After November 15th, 2028, these specific VM series cannot be used. You can't purchase new ones. You can't start existing ones if they're stopped or deallocated. It's a deadline for replatforming.
And replatforming isn't just lifting and shifting the disk, is it?
Not usually, no. It often involves resizing to a modern VM family, like the D or E series, maybe others depending on the workload. It might even require some application re-architecting to fit the specs and characteristics of the newer VMs. Given the potential volume, especially for things like G series or the widely used B series, this migration needs to be treated as a multi-year project.
Starting now.
Starting now. It needs resource allocation, budget planning for the next few fiscal years. It's a significant undertaking, not just a minor update.
Okay, that really underscores the urgency there, despite the 2028 date. Thanks for clarifying that. One last item on retirements, a preview closing down.
Yes, just a note that the public preview of confidential containers on AKS is being shut down.
Why is that?
Microsoft's statement mentioned they're streamlining their confidential computing offerings. So if you happen to be experimenting with that specific preview, you'll need to look at the other generally available paths for confidential computing on Azure that they're actively supporting and prioritizing.
Okay, makes sense to consolidate. Right, so let's try and synthesize all of this. Looking back at the week's updates, what are the main themes you see emerging? What should our listener take away?
I see two main thrusts. First, there's a clear push towards greater operational control and automation at scale. We saw it with Kubernetes OS decoupling, the DMS automation, the precise capacity management in Azure Firewall with prescaling and observed capacity.
Right, making it easier to manage large, complex environments efficiently.
Exactly. Reducing manual effort, reducing error. The second theme is the backdrop of necessary, sometimes massive, infrastructure evolution. That's reflected in the new Malaysia region expanding the footprint, but also very starkly in those mandatory 2028 VM retirements forcing modernization.
Efficiency paired with long-term infrastructure shifts.
Got it. Okay, but before we wrap up, there was one public preview we skipped over earlier. Didn't fit neatly into the other categories, but it hints at potentially a very different future direction for CloudOps.
Ah, you mean the environmental sustainability features in Azure API management? That's the one. What's the idea there?
It's quite interesting. It aims to give organizations visibility into the carbon footprint associated with their API infrastructure. The idea is to make API traffic, policy choices, and operational decisions carbon-aware.
Carbon-aware APIs, okay.
Yeah, providing insights so you can understand and potentially minimize the environmental impact of how you run your APIs.
Right. And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. This API management feature is just a preview, focused on one service. But consider this. As cloud operations become increasingly automated, driven by things like the scaling features and automation we discussed today, what happens when those automation decisions start factoring in more than just cost and performance? What if every scaling event, every regional deployment choice, every configuration setting is also evaluated based on its measurable carbon impact? Think about how that concept of carbon awareness, starting here with APIs, might ripple outwards and potentially influence automation, design patterns, and operational practices across the entire Azure portfolio in the coming years. Something to think about.
It's definitely food for thought. The greening of the cloud driven by data.
Exactly. And on that note, that's all we have time for this week on The Deep Dive.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more updates.